I paid for my parents' retirement for 15 years, but they cut me out of their will. The certified letter felt heavier than it should have in my hands as I sat in my BMW outside Mom and Dad's house. Inside that envelope was a copy of their updated will, something their estate attorney had sent me, as a courtesy, after 15 years of being listed as the primary beneficiary. My hands were actually shaking as I tore it open, expecting to see the usual legal jargon about inheriting the house I'd been paying the mortgage on since 2009. Instead, I saw my brother Kevin's name. Everywhere. Kevin Mitchell Thompson inherits the house at 47 Maple Street. Kevin Mitchell Thompson inherits all financial accounts. Kevin Mitchell Thompson inherits all personal property and remaining assets. My name appeared exactly once. To our daughter Sarah, we leave our gratitude for her support over the years. Gratitude. I started laughing right there in the driveway, probably looking like a lunatic to Mrs. Henderson next door. 15 years of sacrificing my own future, and I get gratitude. Meanwhile, Kevin, who couldn't hold down a job at GameStop without getting fired for showing up high, gets everything. The numbers started flashing through my head like some twisted calculator. The $2,847 monthly mortgage payments I'd been covering since Dad's construction business went under. The $1,200 a month for Mom's diabetes medication and Dad's heart pills. The $800 grocery allowance. The property taxes, homeowner's insurance, the new roof in 2018 that cost me $23,000. The emergency room visits, the car repairs when Dad crashed his truck into the Wendy's drive-thru last Christmas. I pulled out my phone and opened the spreadsheet I'd been meticulously maintaining, something my CPA brain couldn't help but do. The total flashed on my screen, $347,282. That's what I'd poured into keeping my parents afloat over the past decade and a half. Money that should have gone into my own retirement fund, toward the house I still rent because every spare dollar went to them, toward the vacation I'd been promising myself for years. And Kevin? Last time he visited was 3 months ago when he needed to borrow $500 from Mom's purse while she was napping. Before that, Christmas 2022, where he showed up empty-handed, ate everything in sight, and left dishes in the sink. But he was getting everything. I could see Mom through the kitchen window, probably starting dinner with the groceries I'd ordered through Instacart yesterday. She'd be using the new stove I bought her in March, standing on the floors I had refinished last summer. Dad would be in his recliner, the $1,400 one I got him after his back surgery, watching his premium cable package that comes out of my account every month. The attorney's note was still in the envelope. Something about how my parents had made this decision because they felt Kevin needed more support to get on his feet and they knew I was financially stable and would understand. Understand. They wanted me to understand that 15 years of sacrifice meant nothing. That being responsible, reliable, and loving was actually a punishment. That Kevin's complete failure as a son somehow made him more deserving. I sat there for 10 more minutes, watching my parents live their comfortable life inside the home my money maintained. Then I put the car in reverse and drove away without knocking on the door. For the first time in 15 years, I had planning to do. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Kevin's name in that black legal font, stamped across everything I'd built for them. By 3 a.m., I was at my kitchen table with my laptop, pulling bank statements and credit card records going back to 2009. The real numbers were worse than I thought. My spreadsheet had tracked the obvious stuff, mortgage, groceries, utilities. But I'd forgotten about so much more. The $12,000 I spent on Dad's dental implants in 2016. The $8,500 for Mom's cataract surgery that insurance wouldn't fully cover. The countless smaller things, birthday dinners I always paid for, Christmas gifts I bought for them to give each other, the time I hired a cleaning service for 3 months when Mom's arthritis got bad. By sunrise, I had a new total, $394,847. Nearly $400,000. Money that could have bought me a house with a down payment and mortgage payment smaller than what I was giving them monthly. Money that could have padded my retirement account, currently sitting at a pathetic $127,000 for someone my age. I called in sick to work, first time in 2 years, and drove to their attorney's office. Ms. Thompson, Richard Hawley said, adjusting his wire-rimmed glasses as his secretary closed the door behind me. I wasn't expecting to see you today. Cut the pleasantries, Richard. I want to know when they changed the will. He shifted uncomfortably. I'd met him several times over the years when my parents needed estate planning advice. Advice I'd paid for, naturally. The changes were made 6 weeks ago. Your parents said they discussed it with the family. That's interesting, because I never had that discussion. What prompted this? Richard opened a file folder, clearly wishing he was anywhere else. They mentioned that Kevin was going through a difficult time. Something about him finally being ready to settle down and start a family. They felt the inheritance would give him stability. I actually snorted. Start a family. Richard, Kevin hasn't kept a girlfriend longer than 3 months since high school. His idea of stability is remembering to pay his phone bill. Perhaps you should discuss this with your parents directly. Oh, I will. But first, I need to know something else. How much debt are they carrying? The silence stretched too long. Richard. I can't discuss your parents' private financial. The same parents who made me power of attorney for their healthcare decisions. Who have me listed as an emergency contact on every account. Who call me at work when they can't figure out their online banking password. My voice was rising. How much debt? He pulled out another folder. As of last month, approximately $47,000 on credit cards. The mortgage balance you're familiar with is about $62,000 remaining. They've also taken out a small personal loan against the house for about $15,000. My mouth went dry. A loan for what? I believe it was for home improvements. A new heating system. The heating system I'd specifically told them I would handle next month when my bonus came through. They'd gone behind my back and borrowed money instead, money that would now be Kevin's responsibility when he inherited their debt-riddled estate. Does Kevin know about any of this? Richard's expression told me everything I needed to know. Perfect. My dear brother thought he was inheriting a free house and whatever savings our parents had managed to accumulate. He had no idea he was actually inheriting over $120,000 in debt on properties and systems maintained entirely by my money. Walking back to my car, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years: anticipation. The plan was starting to form. I spent the rest of that Tuesday conducting what I can only describe as financial reconnaissance. First stop, Mom's doctor's office, where I'd been handling her medical payments for the past 8 years. "Oh, Sarah." The receptionist, Janet, lit up when she saw me. "Perfect timing. We just got the approval for your mother's new insulin pump, but insurance is only covering 60%. The remaining balance will be about $3,200. Actually, Janet, I need to update our payment arrangement. Going forward, all medical bills need to be sent directly to my parents. I won't be handling their healthcare expenses anymore." Her smile faltered. "Oh. Should I call your mother about the insulin pump payment?" "That would be perfect." Next, I drove to Riverside Pharmacy, where pharmacist Mike Chen had been filling my parents' prescriptions on my credit card since 2017. "Hey Sarah. I was just about to call you. Your dad's Lipitor prescription changed to a non-generic version. It's going to run about $340 a month now instead of the usual $80. Should I put it on your usual card?" "Mike, I need you to remove my payment information from their accounts. Everything goes back to their insurance and whatever they can pay out of pocket." His face went pale. "Are you sure? Your father's heart medication alone is going to be almost $600 a month without your supplemental coverage." "I'm absolutely sure." By 3 p.m., I'd made similar stops to their auto insurance office, removing myself as the guarantor on their policy, the lawn service I'd been paying to maintain their yard, and the handyman who'd been doing their home repairs on my dime. Each conversation ended the same way: services would continue only as long as my parents could pay for them directly. The last stop was the hardest, their mortgage company. "Ms. Thompson, I show you've been making payments on account hashtag 847-291-4564. Brenda from customer service paused to check her screen. "Wow, over 14 years. That's incredible. I need to remove my automatic payment authorization, effective immediately." "Oh no. Is everything all right? Should I transfer you to our hardship department? The account holders will need to contact you directly about future payment arrangements." There was a long pause. "Ma'am, I'm looking at their original mortgage application from 2008. Based on their listed income and ages, they qualified only because you were added as a cosigner with payment responsibility. Without your payments, this account will go into default within 30 days. "Perfect." Kevin was going to inherit a house in foreclosure proceedings. When I got home, my phone had 7 missed calls from Mom. I poured myself a glass of the expensive wine I never bought anymore because every spare dollar went to their expenses, and listened to the voicemails. Message 1, for 17 p.m, "Sarah, honey, the pharmacy called and said something about payment issues. Could you call me?" Message 5, 6:22 p.m, "Sarah, your father went to pick up his heart medication and they wanted $178. There must be some mistake." Message 7, 7:45 p.m, "Sarah Michelle Thompson, I don't know what's going on, but we need to talk. Call me tonight. Sarah Michelle." The full name treatment. I hadn't heard that since I was 16 and came home past curfew. Instead of calling back, I opened my laptop and composed an email. Not to my parents, they'd get their conversation soon enough. This one was going to Kevin, at the Gmail account he'd created in 2019 and probably checked once a month. "Hey little brother," I typed. "Congratulations on your inheritance. I thought you might want to know what you'll be taking over." I attached a detailed spreadsheet showing every payment I'd made, every debt they'd accumulated, and a projection of their monthly expenses versus their actual Social Security income. The shortfall was $3,200 per month, money that would now be his responsibility if he wanted to keep them in their house. At the bottom, I added, "P.S. The roof needs to be replaced again in about 3 years. I was quoted $31,000 last month. Also, Dad's 2015 Honda is making that weird noise again. Transmission problems, probably another $4,000. Good luck. Send." My phone rang 30 seconds later. Mom's number. This time, I answered. "Sarah Michelle Thompson, what in God's name is going on?" Mom's voice was shrill through the phone speaker. "The pharmacy is saying we owe them over $600, and the mortgage company called asking when we can discuss payment options." I took a slow sip of my wine, a 2019 Cabernet that cost more than what I used to allow myself to spend on groceries in a week. "Hi Mom. How was your day?" How was your day, me, young lady? What did you do?" "I stopped paying for your lives. Effective immediately." The silence stretched so long I thought the call had dropped. Then I heard Dad's voice in the background. "What's she saying, Linda? What about my heart pills?" "Sarah," Mom's voice was quieter now, uncertain. "I don't understand. Did we do something wrong? Are you having money troubles?" Money troubles. After 15 years of sacrificing my own financial security for theirs, she thought this was about my money troubles. "Mom, when were you planning to tell me about the will?" Another silence. Longer this time. "How did you?" "Richard Hawley sent me a copy. You know, professional courtesy between the lawyer and the person who's been funding his retainer fees for over a decade." "Sarah, honey, we can explain." "Explain what?" "That Kevin needs the house more than the person who's been paying for it. That my $400,000 in contributions over the years somehow makes me less deserving than someone who's visited 12 times in 5 years. 400,000. Dad's voice was closer to the phone now. "Linda, what's she talking about 400,000? Oh, this was rich. Dad didn't even know how much I'd been covering." "You didn't tell him, did you Mom?" "Dad has no idea that the reason you two have been living so comfortably is because I've been subsidizing your entire existence." "That's not, we never asked you to." "You didn't ask." "Mom, you called me crying in 2009 because you were 3 months behind on the mortgage. You said you'd lose the house Dad built with his own hands. You begged me to help just until Dad found work again. That was 15 years ago. I could hear papers rustling, probably Dad trying to process this information. Sarah, Dad's voice was shaky. We thought you were just helping out. You never said it was this much money. Because every time I tried to talk about scaling back, one of you had a medical emergency or the car broke down or the furnace died. There was always something. But Kevin, Mom started, then stopped. But Kevin what? Needs it more. Dad, let me paint you a picture of what Kevin's inheriting. A house with $62,000 still owed on the mortgage that he can't qualify to refinance because he's never held a job longer than 8 months. Credit card debt of $47,000. A personal loan of $15,000. Monthly expenses of about $3,200 over your social security income. That can't be right, Dad whispered. Oh, it gets better. The roof I've been planning to replace next spring. That's Kevin's problem now. The heating system you just took a loan out for, the one I specifically said I'd handle. Kevin gets to make those payments. Mom's new insulin pump that insurance won't cover. Kevin's on the hook for $3,200 by Friday. My call waiting beeped. Kevin's number. Looks like little brother got my email, I said. I'll let you two explain to him how grateful he should be for his inheritance. And Mom. That gratitude you left me in the will. Thanks, but I think I'm all set on gratitude. What I needed was respect. I switched to the other call. What the actual hell, Sarah? Kevin's voice was panicked. This spreadsheet can't be real. $394,000. You're lying. Hi Kevin. Congratulations on becoming Mom and Dad's new ATM. I'm not their ATM. Kevin's voice cracked like he was 16 again. I never signed up for this. Funny, neither did I. But here we are. You can't just dump this on me. I don't have that kind of money. I pulled up his Facebook profile on my laptop while he ranted. His most recent post was from last Tuesday, a photo of him at Topgolf with some blonde, captioned, living my best life. Hashtag no worries, hashtag YOLO. The timestamp showed 2:47 p.m. on a Wednesday. During work hours. Kevin, what's your current job situation? That's not, why does that matter? Because in about 3 weeks, you're going to get a call from Riverside Mortgage asking how you plan to make the November payment. They're going to want to know about your income, your credit score, your ability to take over a loan that Mom and Dad never qualified for in the first place. Silence. Kevin. Still there. I'm between opportunities right now, he mumbled. Between opportunities. Classic Kevin speak for unemployed. Let me guess. The manager position at Best Buy didn't work out. That guy had it out for me from day one. So you're unemployed, living in that studio apartment that I'm pretty sure Mom helped you get the deposit for, and you just inherited a financial nightmare that requires about $4,000 a month to maintain. You're supposed to be the responsible one. His voice was getting higher. You make good money. You can afford this. And there it was. The same entitlement that had been festering in this family for 15 years. I could afford it, Kevin. Past tense. Do you know what my retirement account looks like? Do you know that I'm 45 years old and still renting a 2-bedroom apartment because I've been paying Mom and Dad's mortgage instead of saving for my own house? But they're our parents. Yes, they are. Equally. Your parents just as much as mine. So tell me, what have you contributed to their care? And I don't mean the occasional $20 you slip Mom when you need her to feel sorry for you. My phone buzzed with a text from Mom. Sarah, please call us back. We need to discuss this like adults. Like adults. I screenshotted the message and sent it to Kevin. Looks like Mom and Dad want to have an adult discussion. You should probably join that conversation, since you're inheriting all the adult responsibilities. Sarah, please. Kevin's voice shifted from angry to pleading. I can't handle all this. I don't even understand half the stuff on this spreadsheet. What's PMI? What's escrow? PMI was private mortgage insurance. Escrow was the account that held property tax and insurance payments. Basic homeownership concepts that Kevin had never needed to learn because he'd never owned anything more valuable than a PlayStation. Those are things you're going to need to figure out pretty quickly. I'd suggest starting with a financial advisor. Dad's accountant is pretty good. I've been paying his fees for the past 6 years. You can't just abandon them. The word abandon hit harder than I expected. For a moment, I almost wavered. Almost. Then I remembered the will. Gratitude. After $400,000 in sacrifices, I got gratitude while Kevin got everything else. I'm not abandoning anyone, Kevin. I'm accepting Mom and Dad's decision that you're the child they want to depend on. They've made their choice about who deserves what. Now they get to live with that choice. But what if I can't? Then you'll figure it out. The same way I had to figure out how to stretch my income to cover 2 households for the past decade and a half. The same way I figured out how to manage their medical crises and home repairs and every other emergency that came up while you were living your best life. My phone started ringing again. Mom's number. I declined the call. Kevin, I'm going to give you some free advice, since it's the last free thing you're getting from me. Call them back. Get a complete list of every bill, every debt, every monthly payment. Then figure out how you're going to cover a $4,000 monthly shortfall on whatever income you can scrape together. And if I can't, then Mom and Dad will have to make some hard choices about their lifestyle. Maybe they'll have to sell the house, downsize to something they can actually afford. Move to a senior community. Apply for Medicaid. All the things they should have been planning for instead of assuming their daughter would bankroll them forever. I could hear him breathing hard through the phone. You know what the really crazy part is, Kevin? If they'd just talked to me about the will, if they'd shown me even basic respect for what I've been doing, we probably could have worked something out. But finding out through their lawyer that I'm worth nothing more than a line about gratitude? That's what ended this. The call waiting beeped again. Mom and Dad, calling back. Your parents are calling. Better answer, you've got a lot to discuss. I hung up and turned off my phone. For the first time in 15 years, their crisis wasn't my emergency. The next morning, I woke up to 17 missed calls and 43 text messages. I made coffee in my quiet kitchen, savoring the silence that used to be interrupted by daily crisis calls, and scrolled through the digital chaos I'd created. Kevin had apparently spent the night in full panic mode. His text started coherent around 11 p.m, "Sarah, we need to talk about this, and can you at least help me understand the paperwork," but devolved into increasingly frantic messages by 3 a.m, "The mortgage people want to talk tomorrow," and "MOM is crying and Dad looks sick." Mom's texts were a masterclass in manipulation techniques I'd somehow never noticed before. She'd started with hurt confusion, "Sarah honey, we raised you better than this." Then moved to guilt, "Your father didn't sleep all night, his heart condition can't handle this stress." And finally landed on anger, "If you think you can blackmail us into changing the will, you're wrong. Kevin is getting what we promised him." Blackmail. That was rich coming from someone who'd been emotionally blackmailing me into financial servitude for 15 years. But it was Dad's single text, sent at 4:17 a.m, that made me pause. I never knew about the money. "We need to talk face to face. Please." I was still staring at that message when my doorbell rang. Through the peephole, I saw Kevin's rusty 2018 Civic in my driveway and Kevin himself standing on my porch, looking like he hadn't slept. His usually perfectly styled hair was a mess, and he was wearing the same clothes from his Facebook photos. "We need to talk," he said the moment I opened the door. "Good morning to you too. Coffee?" "I'm serious, Sarah." He pushed past me into my living room, a space he'd visited maybe 5 times in the 8 years I'd lived here. His eyes swept over my modest furniture, the stack of financial magazines on my coffee table, the single photo of me at last year's company retreat, no expensive artwork, no luxury items. Everything that could have decorated this place had gone to maintaining their lifestyle instead. "You look like hell," I observed, settling into my armchair with my coffee mug. "I've been up all night trying to make sense of your spreadsheet." He pulled out his phone, and I could see my email pulled up with what looked like handwritten notes scrawled around the edges. "This number here, the $23,000 for a roof. That's more than I made all last year. Welcome to homeownership, Kevin. But I don't own a home. I don't want to own a home. Especially not one that comes with $60,000 in debt and parents who apparently need $4,000 a month just to exist." I sipped my coffee and waited. This was Kevin's crisis now. "And another thing," he continued, pacing around my small living room like a caged animal. "When exactly were you planning to tell me that you've been playing house bank for 15 years? Did you think I'd just magically figure out how to replace $400,000 in contributions? Kevin, sit down. You're making me dizzy." He collapsed onto my couch, his head in his hands. "Mom called me at midnight last night, crying about how they might lose the house. Dad got on the phone talking about his medications and how they can't afford them without insurance supplements. I didn't even know what insurance supplements were until 3 hours ago. And now you do. Learning experience." He looked up at me with red-rimmed eyes. "Sarah, I got fired from Best Buy 3 weeks ago. My rent is 2 months behind. I've been eating ramen and hoping Mom would invite me over for dinner. I can't take care of them, I can't even take care of myself." The admission hung in the air between us. Kevin had never been this honest about his situation before, probably not even to himself. "Then maybe you should have thought about that before accepting an inheritance you weren't prepared for." "I didn't accept anything. I didn't even know about the will until yesterday. That stopped me cold." "What do you mean you didn't know?" "Mom called me 3 weeks ago, said they were updating their estate planning and I might be getting a little something when they passed. I figured she meant like her jewelry box and Dad's tools. I had no idea they were signing over everything." This was a new wrinkle I hadn't anticipated. Kevin wasn't some mastermind who manipulated his way into the inheritance, he was just as blindsided as I was. "So you never asked them to change the will?" "Hell no. Sarah, I know I'm a screw-up, but I'm not stupid." "Well, not that stupid." He ran his hands through his messy hair. "I always figured you'd inherit everything because you're the one who has your life together. I was actually relieved that I wouldn't have to deal with all that responsibility." "Then why did they change it?" Kevin was quiet for a long moment, staring at his hands. I think it might be my fault, but not the way you think. About 2 months ago, I was over there for Sunday dinner, you know, the one time a month I actually show up, and I was telling them about this girl I'd been seeing. Jessica. She seemed different, more mature, and I guess I got carried away talking about maybe settling down someday." Kevin shifted uncomfortably on my couch. Mom got this weird gleam in her eye and started asking all these questions. Did I think Jessica was the one? Was I ready to think about marriage and kids? Where would we live? I felt a cold weight settling in my stomach. "And what did you tell her?" I said I'd need to get my act together first. Find a stable job, maybe save up for a place that wasn't a studio apartment with a Murphy bed. He looked up at me. That's when Mom started talking about how family helps family, and how they wanted to make sure I had opportunities to build a future. Jesus, Kevin. It gets worse. Dad jumped in talking about how you were already established, how you had a good job and didn't need help getting started in life. They kept saying stuff like, Kevin needs a foundation, and Sarah's already built her foundation. The irony was suffocating. My foundation, the one they thought was so solid, had been built on quicksand because I'd been pouring everything into their sinkhole for 15 years. What happened to Jessica? Kevin's face crumpled. She dumped me 3 days after that dinner. Turned out she was already seeing some guy from her CrossFit gym. I never even told Mom and Dad we broke up. So there it was. My parents had restructured their entire estate based on Kevin's fantasy relationship with a woman who was cheating on him. They'd written me out of their will to help him impress a girlfriend who'd already moved on. Kevin, did you ever wonder how they could afford to leave you a house? Did you think about where the money was coming from to maintain their lifestyle? Honestly, I figured Dad's construction business had been more successful than I realized. Maybe they had savings, or good insurance, or something. He shrugged helplessly. I don't know how any of that stuff works. When I needed money, I just asked Mom for $100 here and there. $100 here and there. While I was writing 4-figure checks monthly. Show me your notes, I said, gesturing to his phone. He handed it over reluctantly. His handwritten calculations were scattered across a napkin from what looked like McDonald's. The math was wrong in at least 6 places, and he'd somehow calculated their monthly shortfall as $247 instead of $3,200. Kevin, you're missing a zero on the mortgage payment. And you didn't include property taxes, insurance, or any of the medical expenses. There's more medical expenses. I pulled out my laptop and opened the detailed breakdown I'd created yesterday. Mom's insulin is $340 a month. Her other diabetes medications are another $180. Dad's heart medication cocktail runs about $290 monthly, and that's with insurance. The supplements his cardiologist recommended are $85 a month, but those aren't covered at all. Kevin's face went progressively paler as I continued. Then there's the quarterly visits to specialists. Mom's endocrinologist, Dad's cardiologist, the optometrist for Mom's diabetic retinopathy monitoring. Insurance covers the basics, but there are always copays, upgraded tests, non-covered procedures. How much are we talking about? Last year, medical expenses beyond basic insurance ran about $8,400. That's not counting the emergency room visit when Dad had chest pains in July. That was $1,200 out of pocket. Kevin stared at the screen like it was written in a foreign language. And Kevin, this is just the routine stuff. Wait until one of them needs surgery again, or falls and breaks something, or has a real cardiac event instead of just chest pains. Oh God, he whispered. Sarah, I can't do this. I literally cannot do this. I don't even have $800 in my checking account, let alone $8,000. For the first time since this began, I felt a flicker of sympathy for my brother. He was a screw-up, but he was an honest screw-up. Then here's what's going to happen, I said, closing my laptop. You're going to call Mom and Dad and tell them you can't accept the inheritance. You're going to explain that you don't have the financial capacity to maintain their lifestyle, and they need to make other arrangements. Kevin's head shot up. I can't do that. They'll be devastated. More devastated than losing their house to foreclosure. Because that's what's going to happen, Kevin. The mortgage payment is due in 18 days. Without my automatic payment, they're going to default. But what if? Kevin's voice trailed off as he stared at his phone. What if we worked together? Like, what if you kept helping them, and when they pass away, we split everything 50-50? The audacity of it took my breath away. Are you seriously asking me to continue funding their lives so you can inherit half of what I paid for? That's not what I meant. That's exactly what you meant. I stood up, suddenly needing distance from him. Kevin, do you understand that I've already given them the equivalent of a house down payment plus 15 years of mortgage payments? You want me to keep paying so you can inherit half of my investment? His phone buzzed with a text. Then another. Then a rapid-fire series of notifications that made him wince. Mom? I asked. He nodded, scrolling through the messages. She wants to know if we've worked things out and when you'll be coming to your senses about your family obligations. Family obligations, I repeated. Kevin read me the exact message. He cleared his throat. Kevin honey, I know you and Sarah are talking. Please remind your sister that family takes care of family. We raised her to understand her responsibilities. This tantrum needs to end before your father's heart can't take any more stress. Tantrum. I pulled out my own phone and started typing. What are you doing? Sending Mom a reality check. My fingers flew across the keyboard. I'm texting her the contact information for 3 senior living facilities within 20 miles of here, plus the phone number for the state's financial assistance program for elderly residents. Kevin's eyes widened. You can't be serious. Dead serious. I hit send. I'm also sending her the contact information for a reverse mortgage broker, since apparently she's comfortable taking loans against the house. My phone immediately started ringing. Mom's contact photo, a smiling image from last Christmas where she was wearing the sweater I bought her, filled the screen. Kevin, here's what's interesting about reverse mortgages, I continued, declining the call. They let seniors borrow against their home equity to cover living expenses. Of course, when they die, the bank gets the house to cover the loan balance. Which means there would be nothing left for you to inherit anyway. Sarah, please answer the phone. She's going to keep calling. No, she's going to call you. Because you're her new financial plan. As if on cue, Kevin's phone started ringing. He stared at it like it might bite him. I can't answer that. I don't know what to tell her. Tell her the truth. That you can't afford to take over my role, and she needs to start making adult decisions about her finances. Kevin's phone stopped ringing and immediately started again. She's not going to stop, he said desperately. Then you better start learning how to have uncomfortable conversations with our parents. I've been having them for 15 years, it's your turn. My doorbell rang again. Through the peephole, I could see my father standing on my porch, looking older and more fragile than I'd ever seen him. Dad's here, I announced. Kevin jumped up. Maybe he can talk sense into everyone. I almost laughed. Dad, talking sense into this situation. Dad, who hadn't even known how much money I'd been contributing to their survival. But when I opened the door and saw his face, pale, drawn, with dark circles under his eyes, I felt something crack in my chest. Sarah, he said quietly. We need to talk. I let Dad inside, watching as he took in my modest living room with new eyes. Kevin jumped up from the couch like a guilty teenager, which, let's face it, wasn't far from the truth even at 32. Dad, Kevin started, Sarah's been showing me these numbers, and I think there's been some kind of mistake. There's no mistake. Dad's voice was hoarse, like he'd been up all night. Which, judging by his 4 a.m. text, he probably had been. Your mother finally showed me the real bills this morning. All of them. He pulled out a crumpled manila folder from his jacket pocket, the kind he used to keep construction estimates in back when his business was running. His hands were shaking slightly as he set it on my coffee table. 15 years of bank statements from your mother's purse, he said, looking directly at me. 15 years of bills marked paid, yes. Thompson, in your mother's handwriting. Sarah, I had no idea. Kevin leaned forward. What do you mean you had no idea? How could you not know? Dad's face flushed with shame. Your mother handled all the finances after my business went under. Said it was easier that way, less stressful for me while I was looking for work. He gestured helplessly. I knew Sarah was helping out, but I thought it was maybe $200-300 a month. Temporary assistance. 2 or 300. I couldn't keep the bitterness out of my voice. Dad, my average monthly contribution has been $2,800. For 15 years. The number hit him like a physical blow. He actually staggered back a step. That's impossible. Sarah, your mother said you were just covering the mortgage temporarily. Show him the folder, I interrupted, nodding toward his manila envelope. Dad's arthritic fingers fumbled with the clasp. Inside were bank statements going back to 2009, and I could see Mom's careful handwriting on sticky notes attached to various entries. Payment notations, my name abbreviated as ST next to amounts that told the whole story. October 2019, Dad read aloud, his voice getting smaller. ST roof repair, $23,000. December 2020, ST new furnace, $8,400. March 2023, ST Mom's surgery copay, $3,200. His voice broke completely. Jesus Christ, Sarah. The surgery money too. Kevin was reading over Dad's shoulder, his face going white. The furnace was $8,000. Sarah, that's more than I've ever had in savings in my entire life. And this, Dad continued, pulling out a small notebook with Mom's handwriting, this is what your mother calls her, Sarah budget. Monthly tracking of everything she knew you were covering. He opened it to the most recent page. In Mom's neat script, November 2024, mortgage $2,847, utilities $340, groceries $800, medical $290, insurance supplement $180, miscellaneous, $200. Total, $4,657. I stared at the notebook. She knew exactly how much she was taking from me. Down to the dollar. It gets worse, Dad whispered, flipping back through the pages. Look at this entry from January. The page showed a different kind of calculation, Sarah's annual contribution, approximate $52,000. Kevin inheritance value with house appreciation, approximate $340,000. Kevin needs foundation more, Sarah already established. My mother had calculated the return on investment of my sacrifice and decided Kevin deserved the profits. She planned this, I said, my voice deadly calm. Dad, she deliberately calculated how much I was worth to them versus how much Kevin could benefit from my contributions. She put a price tag on 15 years of my life and decided Kevin should cash in. Kevin was backing away from the coffee table like the notebook might explode. I never asked for this. I never wanted this. Sarah, you have to believe me. I do believe you, I said, and I meant it. Kevin, you're a lot of things, but you're not calculating enough to orchestrate this. This is all Mom. Dad collapsed into my armchair, suddenly looking every one of his 73 years. The will change. Sarah, I swear to you, I thought we were just giving Kevin a small head start. Your mother said we discussed it as a family. When exactly did we discuss it, Dad? He stared at the notebook in his hands. Your mother said you'd agreed Kevin needed more help. She said you told her you were financially secure and wanted to see your brother get a chance to build something. The lies were so elaborate, so carefully constructed. Mom had manipulated both Dad and Kevin, probably telling each of them what they needed to hear to go along with her plan. Dad, in the past 15 years, have I ever once complained about money? Have I ever mentioned struggling financially or wishing I had more for myself? He thought about it, his face growing more troubled. No. You never, you always said things were fine when we asked. Because I didn't want you to feel guilty about how much I was sacrificing. But apparently, Mom interpreted my selflessness as proof that I didn't need anything from you. My phone buzzed with a text. Then Kevin's phone. Then Dad's. The notification sounds overlapped in an electronic symphony of panic. Kevin checked his message first. Mom wants to know where you went, Dad. Oh God, she's calling the mortgage company herself. Dad's phone rang immediately. We all stared at it. Answer it, I said. But put it on speaker. It's time for some honesty in this family. With trembling fingers, Dad accepted the call and tapped the speaker icon. Frank. Thank goodness. Where are you? Mom's voice filled my living room, high-pitched with anxiety. I called Riverside Mortgage and they're saying our payment is overdue. There must be some computer error. Dad looked at me, then at Kevin, then back at the phone. Linda, I'm at Sarah's. We need to talk. What's to talk about? Sarah's having some kind of breakdown, but she'll come around. She always does. In the meantime, can you call the bank and straighten out this mortgage confusion? The casual certainty in her voice, she always does, hit me like ice water. Mom, I called out, loud enough for the phone to pick up. There's no confusion. I canceled my automatic payments. Permanently. Silence. Then, Sarah Michelle Thompson, you get on this phone right now and explain yourself. I'm right here, Mom. And I'm done explaining myself to people who think I'm worth nothing more than a line about gratitude in their will. Sarah, that will was never supposed to be final. Mom's voice cracked through the speaker. We were just planning ahead. We never meant for you to see it yet. I felt Kevin and Dad both turn to stare at me, but I kept my eyes fixed on the phone. Planning ahead for what, exactly? My death. Because that's the only scenario where your gratitude, inheritance makes sense to give me now. Don't be dramatic. We were going to discuss it with the whole family at Christmas. The lawyer said we needed to have something on file, and we thought. You thought you'd make the decision without me and present it as a done deal later. I could feel my carefully maintained composure starting to crack. Tell me, Mom, when you were calculating Kevin's foundation in that little notebook of yours, did you factor in what this would do to my foundation? Another silence. Dad was flipping through the notebook again, his face growing darker. What notebook? Mom's voice was wary now. Dad found the page he was looking for. The one where you wrote S has good job, owns nothing valuable, no dependents to inherit anyway. His voice shook as he read his wife's handwriting. Better K, gets house while young enough to enjoy it. I hadn't seen that page. The words hit me like a physical blow, owns nothing valuable. 15 years of sacrifice, and my own mother viewed my life as having no worth protecting. Linda. Dad's voice was dangerous now, a tone I remembered from childhood when he caught me or Kevin in a serious lie. What else haven't you told me? Frank, you're taking this all wrong. I'm taking this exactly right. Sarah, show me that spreadsheet again. I opened my laptop, pulling up the detailed breakdown of every payment, every sacrifice, every dollar that had flowed from my account to theirs. Dad put on his reading glasses, the ones I paid for after his insurance wouldn't cover progressive lenses. Linda, are you listening? Dad's voice was steel now. Sarah has documentation of $394,847. Nearly $400,000, Linda. From our daughter. The daughter you wrote off as owns nothing valuable. Kevin was frantically texting someone, probably his ex-girlfriend Jessica, based on his desperate expression. He looked up at me with panic in his eyes. Sarah, I needed to tell someone about all this, and I texted Jess about the inheritance mess. She wants to meet up tonight to talk things through. I almost laughed. Kevin, Jessica dumped you. She's not coming back because you suddenly have family drama. She's coming back because someone told her you inherited a house. That's not, she wouldn't. But his face said he knew I was right. Linda Marie Thompson, Dad's voice cut through Kevin's crisis. I want you to listen very carefully. I'm sitting in Sarah's living room, a living room with furniture from IKEA and a 13-inch television because our daughter has been giving us her house money for 15 years. Mom's voice came back smaller, more defensive. She never said she couldn't afford. She never said she could afford it either. Did you ever ask? In 15 years of taking her money, did you ever once ask what it was costing her? The silence stretched long enough that I wondered if the call had dropped. Finally, Mom's voice returned, barely a whisper. She's successful. She has a good job. I thought. You thought wrong. Dad closed the notebook with a snap that echoed through my living room. Linda, Sarah could have bought 3 houses with the money she's given us. 3 houses, Linda. Instead, she's sitting in a rental apartment with furniture that costs less than Kevin's gaming setup. Kevin looked stricken. My gaming setup was only $800. That Sarah probably paid for indirectly, I finished quietly. Every time Mom slipped you grocery money or helped with your deposit or bought your Christmas presents. That was my money, Kevin. It was always my money. The truth of that statement settled over the room like toxic fog. Kevin's face went through several expressions, confusion, realization, then something that looked like nausea. Oh my God, he whispered, staring at his phone where Jessica's text was still visible. Sarah, every time Mom helped me out, that $20 for gas, the $50 for groceries when I was broke, the $200 she gave me for my security deposit last year. All of it, I confirmed. Kevin, where do you think their discretionary income came from? Dad's been on Social Security since 2011. Mom never worked outside the house. Every dollar they had beyond basic survival came from me. Dad was methodically going through Mom's notebook, his face getting grimmer with each page. Linda, I'm reading an entry here from your birthday last year. Dinner at Olive Garden with Frank and kids, $127. Sarah picked up check as usual. Note, suggests Sarah treat family more often, good bonding. My jaw dropped. She was strategically planning for me to pay for family bonding experiences. There's more, Dad continued, his voice getting deadly quiet. Christmas 2023, Sarah's bonus should cover new living room furniture. Mention casually that couch is getting uncomfortable for Frank's back. That couch. The $2,400 sectional that I bought them last December because Mom had mentioned, casually, how Dad winced when he sat down. I'd felt so good about providing that comfort for him. Linda, Dad said into the phone, his voice carrying 37 years of marriage authority. Are you still there? I'm here. Mom's voice was small now, defensive. Frank, you're making this sound worse than it is. Sarah never complained. She never said no. If she couldn't afford it, she should have said something. She shouldn't have had to say anything. Dad's voice exploded through my living room. You don't systematically drain your child's finances and then blame them for not setting boundaries. Kevin's phone buzzed again. Jessica, probably getting impatient about their meetup. He stared at the message, then looked at me with something like horror. She's asking about the house, he said quietly. Jessica wants to know if it's in a good neighborhood, what it's worth, if there's any debt against it. His voice cracked. Sarah, she's already planning our future in a house that you paid for. Kevin, block her number. But what if? Block it now. She doesn't care about you. She cares about what she thinks you're inheriting. I gestured toward Dad's notebook. Just like Mom calculated, you're suddenly attractive because of my investment. Dad found another page that made him curse under his breath. Linda, there's an entry here from last month, Frank asking questions about bills. Told him Sarah likes helping, makes her feel needed. He bought it. The manipulation ran even deeper than I'd realized. Mom hadn't just been taking my money, she'd been actively managing Dad's perception of the situation, making sure he never understood the scope of what was happening. 15 years, I said, more to myself than anyone else. 15 years of lies, manipulation, and financial exploitation. And it all led to a will that gives Kevin everything I paid for while leaving me with gratitude. My phone rang. Mom's number calling me directly now, probably realizing she was losing control of the narrative. I looked at Dad, then at Kevin, both of them staring at my phone like it was a bomb about to explode. Put it on speaker, Dad said grimly. It's time your mother faced all of us at once. I accepted the call and tapped the speaker button. Sarah, honey, Mom's voice came through with forced sweetness. I think there's been a terrible misunderstanding about everything. No misunderstanding, Mom. Just 15 years of you systematically planning to take everything from me while making sure I felt grateful for the privilege. There's no misunderstanding, Mom's voice came back sharper now, the fake sweetness evaporating. Sarah, you're twisting everything to make yourself look like a victim. We never forced you to pay for anything. You offered. Dad's face went red. Linda, I'm looking at a page in your notebook labeled, Sarah Management Strategies. You want to explain what that means? Silence on the phone. Kevin and I both leaned forward. Frank, you're taking that out of context. Strategy 1, mention financial stress during family dinners when Sarah present, Dad read aloud. Strategy 2, casual comments about things we need but can't afford. Strategy 3, medical emergencies always good for large contributions. Linda, what the hell is this? I felt like I was going to be sick. Mom, you had a playbook for manipulating me. It wasn't manipulation. It was just making sure you understood when we needed help. You're so busy with work, sometimes you don't notice. Strategy 4, Dad continued, his voice getting louder, frame requests as temporary. Sarah more likely to agree if she thinks it's short-term assistance. Linda, nothing about this was temporary. Kevin was staring at his phone where 3 more texts from Jessica had come in. She's asking if we can meet at the house instead of coffee. Wants to see what we're working with. He looked up at me with disgust. Sarah, she literally wants to tour the house you paid for. Block her, Kevin. Already did. He tossed his phone on my coffee table. I can't believe I thought she actually wanted to get back together. Here's one more for you, Linda, Dad said, finding another page. Sarah's guilt triggers, Dad's health, Mom's diabetes, family legacy of Frank's construction work, fear of parents losing independence. You mapped out how to emotionally manipulate our daughter. Mom's voice came back defensive and shrill. Every parent knows their children. I know what motivates Sarah because I raised her. That's not manipulation, that's understanding. Understanding? I stood up, pacing to my kitchen window. Mom, you wrote down my psychological weaknesses like you were planning a military campaign. Don't be so dramatic. Strategy 7, Dad interrupted, still reading. If Sarah questions costs, emphasize how much we sacrifice by asking for help. Make her feel guilty for making us feel guilty. Linda, do you hear yourself? Kevin was pulling papers out of Dad's manila folder now, his face getting paler with each bank statement. Sarah, look at this deposit slip from 2021. Mom wrote, Christmas miracle on a $4,700 deposit. That was you, wasn't it? I remembered that Christmas. Their water heater had died on December 18th, and Mom had called crying about how they'd have to choose between hot water and presents for the grandchildren they didn't have. I'd emptied my vacation fund to cover the emergency replacement. The Christmas miracle, I said bitterly. Yeah, that was me choosing to spend my holiday money on your hot water heater instead of the trip to Colorado I'd been planning for 2 years. You went to Colorado, Mom protested through the speaker. I saw the pictures on Facebook. I went to Colorado Springs for 1 day, drove back the same night, and stayed in a Motel 6 because that's all I could afford after covering your emergency. Dad found the bank statement from that period. Linda, there's a note here, Sarah seems stressed about money at Christmas dinner. Good, means she's feeling the contributions. We'll be more careful about requests until spring. The calculated cruelty of it took my breath away. Mom had noticed I was struggling financially and decided that was a good thing because it meant her manipulation was working. That's enough, I said, my voice cutting through the chaos. Dad, hang up the phone. Sarah, wait, Mom's voice was desperate now. No. I'm done listening to you try to spin 15 years of financial abuse into some kind of misunderstanding. I walked over and ended the call myself. The silence in my living room felt deafening. Dad was staring at the notebook like it contained the secrets of the universe. Kevin was methodically tearing up Jessica's printed texts. And I was standing in my own kitchen, finally understanding that I hadn't just been supporting my parents, I'd been the victim of a decade-and-a-half-long con game. Sarah, Dad said quietly. I need you to know that I never saw any of this. Your mother, she told me you were just helping out occasionally. I believe you, Dad. And the will change, she said it was your idea. That you'd specifically asked them to give Kevin a better start in life. Kevin looked up from his pile of torn paper. Dad, I need you to understand something. I can't take over what Sarah's been doing. Even if I wanted to, which I don't, I literally cannot afford it. I don't make in a year what she's been giving you every month. Dad nodded slowly. Then we need to figure out what happens next. My doorbell rang again. Through the peephole, I could see a woman in a business suit holding a clipboard. That's probably Jessica, Kevin said grimly. But when I opened the door, it wasn't Kevin's ex-girlfriend. It was someone much worse. Ms. Thompson. I'm Janet Hayes from Riverside Mortgage. We need to discuss your parents' account immediately. The mortgage representative stood on my doorstep like a harbinger of financial doom, her clipboard thick with official documents that probably spelled out exactly how screwed my parents were about to be. I'm sorry, but there's been some confusion, I said, not inviting her in. I'm not the homeowner. You need to speak with Frank and Linda Thompson directly. Janet Hayes consulted her clipboard, frowning. Ma'am, our records show you've been the primary payment source on account hashtag 847-291-456 for over 14 years. When we couldn't reach Mr. and Mrs. Thompson by phone, we traced the payment history to this address. Behind me, I heard Dad curse softly and Kevin whisper, oh shit. Ms. Hayes, I canceled my payment authorization yesterday. Any future arrangements need to be made with the actual property owners. That's exactly what I need to discuss. She glanced past me into the living room where Dad was clearly visible, Mom's notebook still open in his hands. Mr. Thompson. Sir, we need to talk about your mortgage status immediately. Dad looked like he wanted to disappear into my couch cushions, but he stood up slowly. I suppose we do. I stepped aside reluctantly, and Janet Hayes entered my living room with the efficiency of someone who'd done this dance many times before. Mr. Thompson, your account is 17 days past due as of today. Without Ms. Thompson's automatic payments, you're looking at foreclosure proceedings beginning in approximately 2 weeks. Kevin made a strangled noise. 2 weeks. The original mortgage application from 2008 shows that your parents qualified for the loan only with Ms. Thompson as a co-signer and payment guarantor, Janet continued, consulting her papers. Without her financial backing, frankly, this loan should never have been approved based on your parents' sole income. Dad's face went ashen. What does that mean exactly? It means, I said, settling back into my armchair, that the bank is going to want their money, and they're going to want it now. You can't refinance because you don't qualify for the loan amount. You can't make the payments because your Social Security doesn't cover them. So the bank is going to take the house. Janet nodded grimly. Ms. Thompson is correct. Based on your current financial profile, Mr. Thompson, you have 3 options: bring the account current immediately, sell the property and pay off the loan balance, or proceed with foreclosure. How much to bring it current? Kevin asked, though his voice suggested he already knew the answer would be impossible. Janet flipped through her papers. The past due amount is $2,847, plus late fees of $347. However, given the circumstances, the bank would require 3 months of future payments held in escrow as security, an additional $8,541. Total amount needed immediately, $11,735. The number hung in the air like a death sentence. Kevin didn't have $1,173, let alone nearly $12,000. What about selling? Dad asked weakly. Certainly an option, but you'd need to find a buyer quickly. The foreclosure clock doesn't stop just because you list the property. Janet's tone was professionally sympathetic but firm. And Mr. Thompson, I have to tell you, foreclosed properties in this market typically sell for significantly less than market value. My phone buzzed with a text from Mom. Sarah Marie, you fix this right now. We are not losing our house because of your tantrum. I showed the message to Dad, whose expression cycled through embarrassment, anger, and something that looked like grief. She still doesn't get it, he said quietly. Kevin was frantically calculating on his phone. Even if I got my job back at Best by tomorrow, and worked overtime every week, I couldn't make these payments. Sarah, the monthly mortgage alone is more than I've ever made in a month. Janet Hayes was packing up her paperwork. I'm required to inform you that we'll be sending formal foreclosure notices to the property address within 72 hours. If you'd like to discuss payment arrangements or short sale options, please contact our office immediately. She handed Dad a business card and headed toward my door, then paused. Ms. Thompson, I have to ask, would you consider resuming payments if your parents transferred the property deed to your name? Dad's head snapped up. Kevin stopped mid-calculation. Even I felt my heart skip. That's an interesting question, I said slowly. Janet's question hung in the air like a loaded gun. Would I consider resuming payments if the deed was transferred to my name? The implications were staggering. After 15 years of paying for a house I'd never legally owned, I could actually own it. But it would also mean continuing to fund my parents' lives, just with different paperwork. That's actually not a bad idea, Kevin said, his voice picking up hope for the first time all day. Sarah, you'd own the house, but Mom and Dad could still live there. Like a family arrangement. I stared at him. Kevin, do you understand what you're suggesting? That I continue paying $2,847 a month, plus utilities, insurance, taxes, and maintenance, except now I also get the legal responsibility of being their landlord? Dad was studying Janet's business card like it contained the secrets of the universe. Sarah, what if we paid you rent? Market rate? With what money, Dad? Your Social Security barely covers your medical expenses. Janet Hayes paused at my door, clearly sensing a potential resolution to her problem. If I may suggest, there are legal arrangements that could work. Ms. Thompson could take ownership, your parents could remain as tenants, and any future inheritance questions would be resolved since Ms. Thompson would own the asset she's been maintaining. My phone started buzzing again. Mom, calling back. Don't answer it, Dad said firmly. Not until we figure this out. But even as the phone went silent, I could hear the neighborhood dynamics shifting outside my window. Mrs. Henderson was clearly visible in her yard, pretending to water plants while obviously eavesdropping. The Martinez family next door had their teenage son walking their dog suspiciously close to my driveway. Small-town drama traveled fast, and a mortgage company representative visiting on a Tuesday afternoon was prime gossip material. There's another problem, I said, declining Mom's call for the 3rd time. Even if I took ownership, what happens when you two need more care? Assisted living. Memory care. Medical emergencies that insurance won't cover. Kevin's temporary optimism faded. What do you mean? I mean Dad's 73 and Mom's 71. This isn't going to get cheaper, Kevin. It's going to get exponentially more expensive. I pulled up a bookmark on my phone I'd researched months ago during one of Dad's health scares. Average cost of assisted living in this area is $4,200 a month. Memory care facilities run about $6,800. And that's assuming they can even get into a decent place. Dad's face went pale again. Sarah, we're not planning on needing. Dad, nobody plans on needing it. That's the point. I showed him the website. Sunrise Senior Living has a 2-year waiting list. Brookdale costs $7,400 a month and requires a $25,000 deposit just to get on their list. Janet Hayes was taking notes now, probably calculating whether this family drama was worth her continued involvement. Kevin slumped back on my couch. So even if Sarah takes the house, she's still looking at potentially thousands more per month if you two need care. Plus, I continued, I'd be legally responsible for property maintenance, taxes, insurance, and any major repairs. That roof I mentioned still needs to be replaced in 3 years. The foundation has some settling issues I noticed last spring, probably another $15,000 to address properly. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Sarah, this is your mother using Mrs. Henderson's phone. Call me immediately. The whole neighborhood is watching that mortgage woman leave your house. I showed the message to Dad and Kevin. She's using the neighbors' phones now. Kevin looked mortified. Dad, she's making this into a public spectacle. Through my front window, I could see Mrs. Henderson standing in her driveway, phone in hand, clearly reporting back to someone. Probably Mom, giving her a play-by-play of Janet Hayes walking back to her car. This is going to be all over town by tonight, Dad said miserably. Linda's probably calling everyone we know. As if summoned by his words, my phone rang again. This time it was my Aunt Carol, Mom's sister who lived 3 towns over and usually only called on birthdays. Let me guess, Kevin said. Mom called in a cavalry. I answered on speaker. Hi Aunt Carol. Sarah Marie Thompson, what is this nonsense I'm hearing about you abandoning your parents over some silly will business? There it was. Mom's version of events, already spreading through the extended family network like wildfire. Aunt Carol, I said, putting the phone on speaker so Dad could hear his sister-in-law's version of reality, let me ask you something. In the past 15 years, how much money have you contributed to Mom and Dad's care? Well, that's not the point, Sarah. Family doesn't keep score. I kept score, Carol. $394,847. That's my score. I could see Janet Hayes pause by her car, clearly fascinated by this public family meltdown. What's yours? Silence on the phone. Dad was staring at me with something that looked like pride for the first time in years. Now here's what's going to happen, I continued, standing up and walking to my window where I could see Mrs. Henderson still lurking with her phone. I'm going to make one final offer, and then this conversation ends forever. Kevin sat forward. Dad clutched Janet's business card. Even Aunt Carol went quiet. I will take ownership of the house. I will continue paying the mortgage, taxes, and insurance. Mom and Dad can live there for the rest of their lives, rent-free. I paused, watching Mrs. Henderson frantically texting updates to Mom. In exchange, I get sole inheritance of the property and any remaining assets. Kevin gets exactly what he can afford to inherit, which is nothing. Sarah, Dad started, that's more than fair. I'm not finished. My voice cut through his gratitude. There are conditions. First, Mom apologizes publicly to this family for 15 years of financial manipulation. Second, she turns over complete control of household finances to me, no more secret loans, no more credit card debt, no more strategies for managing my contributions. Through the phone, I could hear Aunt Carol whispering to someone, probably Uncle Jim, getting the extended family gossip network fully activated. Third, I continued, when either of you needs assisted living or memory care, we're using the equity in this house to pay for it. I'm not funding another 15 years of escalating medical expenses. Kevin was nodding enthusiastically. Sarah, that's totally reasonable. You're basically saving them from foreclosure and guaranteeing they can stay in their home. Janet Hayes walked back toward my door, apparently deciding this resolution was worth witnessing. And fourth, I said, my voice getting harder, I never want to hear the word gratitude in connection with my inheritance again. I'm not doing this out of the goodness of my heart anymore. I'm doing this because I refuse to lose my $400,000 investment to your mother's manipulation and Kevin's financial incompetence. Now Sarah, Aunt Carol's voice came back defensive, there's no need to be cruel. Cruel. I laughed, and it wasn't a pleasant sound. Carol, I've spent 15 years sacrificing my financial future for parents who calculated my emotional weaknesses like a psychological profile. I'm 45 years old with $127,000 in retirement savings because I've been funding their comfortable lifestyle while living like a graduate student. Dad was reading through Mom's notebook again, his face growing more ashamed with each page. Sarah's right, Carol. Linda's been lying to all of us for years. My phone buzzed with another text from Mrs. Henderson's number. We need to discuss this as a family. Come home right now. I held up the phone so everyone could see the message. This is Mom's final manipulation attempt. Notice how it's come home to the house I've been paying for but never owned. Janet Hayes knocked on my door again. Ms. Thompson. If you're serious about the ownership transfer, I can have our legal department draw up papers today. It would stop the foreclosure proceedings immediately. Kevin jumped up. Do it. Sarah, please. It's the perfect solution. Kevin, you're agreeing to give up any claim to inherit the house you thought was going to be your foundation for the future, I pointed out. You understand that, right? He nodded vigorously. I never wanted that responsibility anyway. And honestly, after seeing what Mom did to you, I don't want anything that comes with strings attached. Dad closed the notebook with finality. Sarah, I'll make sure your mother agrees to every condition. And I'll make sure she apologizes properly, not just to you, but to Kevin too. He deserved to know what he was really inheriting. Aunt Carol was still sputtering through the phone about family loyalty and forgiveness, but I could hear the defeat in her voice. She'd called expecting to shame me back into compliance and instead gotten a front row seat to the collapse of Mom's carefully constructed lies. Janet, I said, turning to the mortgage representative, draw up the papers. I want ownership transferred within the week. She smiled, probably the first genuinely positive outcome she'd had all month. I'll have everything ready by Friday, Ms. Thompson. My phone rang again. Mom's actual number this time, no more borrowed phones or intermediaries. I answered it one last time, on speaker for everyone to hear. Sarah, Mom's voice was smaller now, defeated. Mrs. Henderson says you're taking the house. That's right, Mom. I'm buying my investment back from you. Consider it 15 years of back rent, finally coming due. The silence stretched long enough that I wondered if she'd finally run out of manipulations. Finally, what do I need to do? Everything I said. Public apology, financial transparency, and an end to the guilt campaigns. I looked at Dad, who nodded encouragingly. And Mom. The next time you want to leave someone gratitude in your will, make sure they didn't already pay for everything you're grateful about. When I hung up the phone, my living room felt different somehow. Lighter. Kevin was already texting someone, hopefully not Jessica. Dad was carefully putting Mom's manipulation notebook back in his folder, probably as evidence for the conversation he'd be having with his wife tonight. For the first time in 15 years, their crisis wasn't my emergency. It was my investment, finally paying dividends.